Good morning. Removing the mask has become part of our ritual. You may know the story about the Brahmin priest passed away. His son took over, and the priest had always tied up the family cat before he did the service. So the father died, the cat died, and then the son took over the service and went out and bought a new cat. And then he tied up the cat before every service. And his mom asked him, "Why'd you go get another cat?" He said, "Well, because Dad always tied up the cat just before chanting." And she said, "That was just to keep the cat out of the way." So removing the mask is a temporary part of our Jodo Shinshu Buddhist ritual, reminding you to wear yours. I am joined by Alan Goto, who is masked and about 50 feet away, and my wife Kyoko, who's masked and about 40 feet away. So we are being safe. Please do be safe. This is our Shotsuki Hoyo, our memorial service for the month of December. We will begin by chanting the Sanbutsuge, and I ask if you would please either reverently listen to the chanting of the Sanbutsuge or join me for this sutra chanting. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. Busatsu Daimuryo Jukyo Sanbutsuge Kogengigi Ijin Mugoku Nyode Enmyo Muyo Tosha Nichigatsumani Shuko Enyo Kaishtonpe Yunyaku Jumoku Nyodai Yogen Chose Murin Shongaku Daion Koru Jippo Kaimon Shojin Tammai Chie Itoku Muryo Shusho Keiyu Juntai Zennen Shobutsu Hokai Gujin Jinno Kungo Gaitai Mumyo Yokunu Teison Yomu Ninno Shi Jintoku Muryo Kukun Kodai Chie Jinmyo Komyo Iso Shinno Daisen Tanga Sabutsu Saisho Ho Kado Shoji Mihu Gedatu Fusei Joi Kainin Shojin Nyode Sammai Chie Ijo Gosei Tokubutun Fugyo Shigan Issai Kuku Issa Dayan Keshi Ubutun Hyakusen Nokuman Muryo Daisho Shunyong Odya Kuyo Issai Shito Shobutun Funyo Gudo Kensho Fugyaku Inyo Goja Shobutsu Sekai Ufu Kage Mushu Setendo Tomyo Shisho Henshi Shokoku Nyode Shojin Ijin Nanryo Ryoga Sabutsu Kokudo Daiichi Goshu Kimyo Gojo Chozetten Kokunyo Naion Nimu Toso Ato Gaimin no Datten Issai Jippo Raisho Shinnetten Shoujo Ito Gakoku Keiraku Annon Kobuten Shinmyo Seiga Shinsho Hotsugan no Hi Rikisho Shoyoku Jippo Seison Chie Muge Joryo Shison Shiga Shingyo Keiryo Shinshi Shoku Dokuchu Kagyo Shojin Ninju Huke Namandabu 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 願に宿毒平等性一切どんもない心恩情あら国ナマンダブルマンダナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブルマンダナモアミラブツナマンダブツナモミラブツナマンダブツナモミラブツナマンダブツナモミラブツナモミラブツナマンダブルマンダナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブルマンダナモミラブツナマンダブツナモミラブツナマンダブツナモミラブツナモミラブツAgain, this is our Shotsuki Hoyo service. We are commemorating those who passed on in the month of December. And I will read the names of those we know who have passed on, temple members, family, friends of the temple members. And there is no necessary donation to be on this list. If you had someone who passed in December, just let us know and we'll add their name to our list to be read every December. This is now our standing Shotsuki Hoyo list, those friends and loved ones that we know did pass away in the month of December. Alai Misao, Doi Catherine, Doi Setsuyo, Fujikawa Sono, Fujimoto Toshihiro, Gibbs George K, Hamada Kane, Hamada Tani, Hamada Umetaro, Hatakeyama Mary Satomi, Hatakeyama Samme, Hayashi Masaki, Kaizoji Hisashi, Kaizoji Kimiko, Kawamoto Dave, Kawamoto Koichi, Kobuke Ayano, Kushigoe Towa, Kuramoto Kazue, Kuramoto Risaburo, Marumoto Hagino, Masumoto Asano, Masumoto Ichiro, Mitsuoka Mitsuru, Morioka Fumie, Morishita Mago Simon, Murakami Tsuru, Naito Mutsue, Nishimoto Masuichi, Nishimoto Leiko Irene, Nishimura Kinsuke, Nishimura Yoshitaka, Okumoto Kosaku, Okuno Fukaichi, Omokawa Tonoyo, Oshita Teru, Otani Saikichi, Sakahara Saikichi, Saikichi, excuse me again, Sakahara Saikichi, Sakamoto Masai, Sano Hashi, Sasaki Masano, Sasaki Sokichi, Shigeno Norumi, Shinmoto Sechiko, Sugihara Chieko, Sugita Tsuji, Sunada Akira. Takai, Tokichi. Takeda, Seiichiro. Takenouchi, Sato. Tanigawa, Kameo. Teroka, Eizo. Tsukida, Tsugio. Umeta, Shina. Umeta, Tetsuo. Uemura, Shizue. Watanabe, Giichi. Yamanaka, Chiyo. Yamanaka, Masao. Yamane, Miyako. Yamasaki, Keinichi. Yamasaki, Masuo. Yamasaki, Soyo. Yamasaki, Sumito. Yamashita, Ichino. Yonesawa, Sokichi. Namo Midabutsu, Namandabutsu, Namo Midabutsu, Namandabutsu, Namo Midabutsu, Namandabutsu, Namo Midabutsu, Namandabutsu, Namandabutsu. Well, again, thank you for joining us for this Shotsuki Hoyo service. This is our service dedicated to those temple members, friends, and family members who passed away this month, in the month of December. This service is dedicated to those who passed away in December, but it is also for you and me, you and I, for those left behind. I would like to frame this service in terms of a letter written by our denominational founder, Shinran. He wrote this letter when he was 88 years old, so he was aware of the approaching possibility of death. And I'm going to read the letter after first reading the translator's editorial comment, Dennis Hirota. First reading Dennis Hirota's remark about Shinran's letter. This letter, written by Shinran in a year of great famine and pestilence, when he himself was 88 years old. It expresses his feelings concerning death and dying. Aware of his approaching end, he writes as a compassionate father would to his children. The letter, moving in its simplicity, states that in facing death, no scholarly knowledge is needed and no moral virtue is required. Only shinjin is necessary. Only the trusting confidence in the promise of Amida Buddha is needed. That's Dennis Hirota, our translator's comments on the letter. Now, reading Shinran's letter, written November 13th, 1260, some time back, when Shinran was 88 years old. It is saddening that so many people, both young and old, men and women, have died this year and the last. But the Tathagata taught the truth of life's transience for us fully, so you must not be distressed by it. I, for my own part, attach no significance to the condition, good or bad, of a person in his final moments. People in whom the trusting confidence of shinjin is determined do not doubt, and so abide among the truly settled. For this reason, persons of shinjin meet their end, but also even those who are foolish and ignorant meet a happy end in faith. You have been explaining to people, as I have told you, that one attains birth through the Tathagata's working. It is in no way otherwise. What I have been saying to all of you for many years past has not changed. Simply achieve your birth, firmly avoiding all scholarly debate. I recall hearing the late Master Honen say, the person of the Jodo Shinshu tradition attains birth in the Pure Land by becoming his foolish self. Moreover, I remember him smile and say as he watched humble people of no intellectual pretensions coming to visit him, without a doubt their birth is settled. And I heard him say after a visit by a man brilliant in letters and learning and clever in debating, I wonder about his birth. To this day, these things come to my mind. Each of you should attain your birth without being misled by people, without faltering in faith. The practicer in whom the trusting confidence of shinjin has not become settled will continue to drift, even without being misled by anyone, for he does not abide among the truly settled. Please relay what I have written here to others. Respectfully, Shinran. So Shinran, at the age of 88, knowing his own death would come soon, 2 more years as it turned out, shares these thoughts with us. And in truth, we do not forget those whom we love. Many of us imagine a reunion with them in some sense, maybe in several senses, more than one way. I imagine this, reunion, being reunited with my deceased parents. But all of us, even those who don't think this way, all of us also need to, in some sense, let go. Let go of them. Let them go. Our deceased loved ones. How are we to do this? How do we let go of our deceased mother, father, sister, brother? In thinking about this with you, allow me to look back at a very old Buddhist teaching, the teaching of the 4 Immeasurables. They are so called immeasurable because it is said you cannot have too much of them, and they are friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, that's reveling in the good fortune of others, and equanimity. Almost anything else, you could have too much of it. You can have too much fruit. You can eat too much fruit. If you eat too much fruit, it will create trouble with your pancreas. If you keep bathing your pancreas in fructose by eating only fruit, it's not healthy. You can have too much manzanita growing. In the summers, I used to work for the Forest Service. There is nothing more miserable to try to cut that grows in the western United States than manzanita. When you're trying to cut a fire line, I mean, those big pine trees, they just go over, you got to cut through them, but then they just go. Manzanita, I mean, it's almost impossible to cut it with anything except a chainsaw. And it's very troubling. So you can have too much manzanita, although it looks nice, when they lacquer it and take a nice piece, it sits up in the mantle. But I look at that and go, ooh, manzanita. You can have too much manzanita. We had too much here in California the last few years. Too flammable, too hard to remove and too easily flammable. You can have too much water. You can drink too much water. They was on the internet post recently remembering a case a few years back where there was a marathon run in Australia. And this woman runner, she crossed the finish line. She did pretty well. She didn't win, but she did well. But then she started guzzling water, and her friends were telling her, hey, that's 3 bottles, that's enough, that's enough. She, oh no, I'm so thirsty. Water can't hurt you. It killed her. I assume what happens is you wash the electrolytes out of your system and then you have a stroke or a heart attack. You can have too much water. You can drink too much water, but we're taught in Buddhist tradition, you can't be too friendly. You can't be too compassionate. You can't have too much of a positive feeling about the good fortune of others. You can't be too equal-mindedness, even-minded, too equanimous. Equanimous? I draw in this teaching of the Brahma Viharas, the Sanskrit for it, the 4 Immeasurables, particularly for the classic mother-child analogy that is given in the texts to explain this to us, to explain these 4 ways of feeling. And regarding the first of these immeasurably positive qualities, loving kindness, metta, maitri, loving kindness or friendliness, it is said to be like a mother's attitude towards her child, pretty straightforward, pretty straightforward. So if I have loving kindness for my deceased parents, my father passed away December 15th of 1994, my mom November 24th, 2 years earlier in 1992. And when I'm feeling this way, feeling kindly feelings for them, wishing kindness for them, wishing I could give them something they need and want, I have imaginations. I imagine I'm going to travel back in time and I'm going to take them to France. And in France, I'm going to introduce my father to Gerald Ford. My father was a lifelong Democrat, but he liked Gerald Ford for some reason, I will introduce him to Gerald Ford. My father would like to have a conversation with Gerald Ford. My mother was a great fan of the newsman John Chancellor. I want to introduce my mother to John Chancellor. We'd go there in Paris, Champs-Élysées, have some coffee. Hi, Mom. Yeah, this is John Chancellor. Tell him how you like his show. Dad, this is Gerald Ford. I know how much you admire him. Tell him what you think about him. That's a silly thing to think, but it's what I think. It's what I feel. This is what I feel when I'm thinking about kindness. What can I do? What can loving kindness have to do with my deceased parents? Compassion is also quite straightforward, and the ancient texts of the Buddhist traditions say that compassion is like the feeling a mother has for her child when the child is sick. That's pretty straightforward, you know. When I think compassionate thoughts, I think of my mother suffering with cancer and cardiovascular disease. I want to go back in time with more modern cures and palliatives. I want to go back in time and find a way to take away my mother's suffering from these diseases. I want to go back and get my father better dental care. He got dentures at the age of 60. That's too early. That's too early. When I'm feeling compassionate, I imagine going back in time and making things right. Is that possible? For me right now, absolutely not. As an awoken person in the future, as a Buddha in the future, can I do this? I don't know. I don't know. I think these thoughts now because I need to. I need to have these positive feelings about my parents, whether it's possible or not. Wishing it could be possible is meaningful. Whether it is possible or not, it is what turning compassionate thoughts to my deceased parents leads me to think, feel, and imagine. Now the third immeasurable, Brahma-vihara, the abode of divinity. The third immeasurably positive quality is sympathetic joy, reveling in the wholesome good fortune of others. Now, our family are soccer fans, and we like Barcelona, and we like Lionel Messi, who's still with the Barcelona team as we speak. Now, Lionel Messi just got his picture on a Pepsi can, and that's going to cheer him up, you know. He's having a bad year. He and Ronaldo, you know, the last 5 years, these two top soccer players, they just miss making $1 billion each year. So they're the most highly paid athletes in the world. Floyd Mayweather only gets $1.5 billion every third year. You know, they get just about $1 billion every year. Lionel's going to make maybe $600-700 million this year. That's going to be his lowest income in 5 years. So he needs cheering up. He's got a picture on a Pepsi can, you know. I don't want my picture on a Pepsi can. I don't envy him it. Good for him, good for him. That's sympathetic joy, good for him. The texts, the Buddhist texts, our tradition says that sympathetic joy, this reveling in the good fortune of others, is like a mother's feeling for her child when he is succeeding, when he is flourishing. Now I remember my deceased mother bought a plaque for me when I got my bachelor's degree, and she ordered it from some company, and it had a graduation tassel on a piece of wood, purple, silver graduation tassel, and it said summa cum laude, because I got my degrees summa cum laude. And she put that up there on the wall, you know, because my mother had to drop out of high school in her sophomore year of high school during the Great Depression to become a switchboard operator to support her mother and herself. So she could not complete her education. It was very meaningful to her that her family was able to get educated, and that I was able to get my bachelor's degree and my high school diploma and my master's degree, summa cum laude. So there she had, summa cum laude. The day she died, I threw that plaque away. I thought it was silly. I don't want the plaque. I love my mother. The plaque doesn't mean it meant something to her. And I threw the plaque away, but I did not, and I will not forget how my mother felt about this. It was a vindication for her. She couldn't complete her education, but her son did, and she wanted that plaque up on the wall. So good for her for reveling in it. I'm glad that she could feel that. I'm glad that it made her happy, and it makes me happy that it made her happy. I still threw the plaque away after she passed away. The fourth Brahma-vihara, the divine abode, the fourth immeasurable quality, a quality you can't have too much of, is equanimity. And it's the hardest one to describe. And I like this very ancient analogy. What is even-mindedness, even-temperedness, equanimity? It is described in the Buddhist texts as being like a mother's feeling for her child when her child is busy with her own affairs. It makes sense to me. The way a mother feels about her child when her child's busy with his own business, you know. Some of you may not be able to share my feelings and imaginations about future lives for our loved ones. Not all of you want to imagine somehow going back in time and making it right. That's my imagination. You may share it or not. But all of us can learn to let go, even of our mothers. I can let her go because I'm letting her be about her own business. I can let her take care of her own affairs. Thinking about it that way helps me. Our first son, Sho, has spent most of the last 3 years in Virginia, getting his college education, taking care of his own affairs. I feel good about it. I don't feel bad about it. I don't worry about my son taking care of his own business. And I try to feel that way about my mother who's passed on. I don't worry about my mother any more than I worry about my son. They are both simply busy with their own affairs. And I can be fine with that. These are the thoughts that I wanted to share with you this morning for our December Shotsuki Hoyo, our December memorial service for those who passed, one December or another. In remembering those we love who have passed before us, I hope that these thoughts and feelings that I'm mentioning will be of some help to you. This morning I've spoken with you about feelings that you can't have too much of: friendliness, compassion, reveling in the good fortune of others, and equanimity. In particular, I wanted to look at this ancient analogy of being even-minded about things. When you let go of someone, you don't abandon them. I will not abandon my mother, but I can let go of her to let her be taking care of her own affairs. We are busy like a good parent, content that our children are busy with their own business, taking care of their own affairs. This is not indifference. This is a kind of love. This is one of the helps that the Buddhist tradition holds out to us. Sometimes we're friendly, sometimes we're compassionate, sometimes we revel in the good fortune of others, and sometimes we're just content to know that those we love are busy taking care of their own business, busy about their own affairs. And in particular, that's how I look at my mother, having passed on to a new life. She's busy with her own affairs. I love her and I will not abandon her, but I don't need to cling on to her. She's okay. She's taking care of her own business. I will close the Shotsuki Hoyo service for the month of December, our December memorial service, on that note, if I may. And I'll ask those of you who wish to join me in closing in Gassho, posture of respect and peace, and say the Buddha's name a few times as you are moved, as you are so moved. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much.